Section 31 of Curly and Floppy Twistytail. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Curly and Floppy Twistytail by Howard R. Garis. Story 31. The Twistytails' Christmas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even an automobile, read Curlytail, the little piggy boy, as he sat by the open fireplace in his house. "Hold on!" cried his brother Floppier. "That isn't right, Curly. It should not be a mouse stirring. I know that poem." "You're right, Floppy dear," admitted Curlytail. "I read it wrong. But anyhow, tomorrow is Christmas, and I was thinking so much about the toy automobile I want that I guess I put one in the verse by mistake." "All right, then I'll forgive you," said Floppy, who was sitting by the fireplace, stringing red, white, and blue popcorn for baby Pinkie's rag doll's Christmas tree. "And I'm thinking of the toy steam engine that I want," went on Floppier. "Oh, why doesn't Christmas hurry up and come?" "That's what I want to know," put in Pinkie as she dressed her doll in her best dress, all ready for the holiday that was soon to be there. Oh, such goings-on as there were in the Twistytail house! The holly with its red berries and its prickly leaves had been put in the windows, and on the gas chandeliers had been hung the mystical mistletoe with its white berries, and whoever stood under it would have to love everybody else. And such good smells as there were coming from the kitchen! Pumpkin pies, and sour milk pudding, and apple cake, to say nothing of cornmeal lollipops with chocolate in the middle. Mrs. Twistytail was as busy as anything, and as for Papa Twistytail, he had stayed home from the office on purpose to help decorate the house. Floppier and Curlytail and baby Pinkie had written letters to Santa Claus the night before, and put them near the chimney. And in the morning, would you believe it, those letters were gone. Yes, sirree, not a trace of them left. "Oh, goody!" cried baby Pinkie. "Santa Claus came in his reindeer sleigh and took them. Now we'll get just what we want." Busier and busier became everything in the Twistytail house, and for that matter, there were busy times in the homes of Sammy and Susie Littletail, and Johnny and Billy Bushytail, and the Wibble-Wobble Duck children, and Jackie and Petey Bow-Wow the puppy dogs. And as for Uncle Wiggily Longears, the old rabbit gentleman, who was quite rich since he found his new fortune, he was so busy that he wore out 2 rheumatism crutches, and Nurse Jane Fuzzy Wuzzy had to gnaw him another from a broomstick instead of a cornstalk. Then it began to snow, and oh, how the white flakes did swirl down out of the sky, blowing here and there like feathers. They piled up in drifts, and the animal children raced through them, kicking their feet about, tossing the white flakes up in the air, falling down in the drifts and making snowballs. And the wind came down the chimney like a fairy blowing a blast on a trumpet. "Oh, it was the most jolly time of the year," Uncle Wiggily said to himself, and he ought to know if anybody does. "You must go to bed early this night, children," said Mrs. Twistytail after supper. "The sooner you are asleep, the sooner will it be Christmas." "We will," said Curlytail and Floppier and baby Pinkie, and off they trotted after kissing their papa and mamma good night, their little kinky tails flopping up and down like a lady's earrings when she runs after a trolley car. Darker and darker it grew, and still the snowflakes kept coming down until all the ground was white, and the roofs of houses too, and the gate posts, and the pump in the yard, and everything all white, ready for Christmas. "Santa Claus's reindeer can easily pull the sleigh tonight," said baby Pinkie as she looked from the window. "Come, get back in bed," called Curly-Tail, "or Santa Claus won't come." It was close to midnight, and still the snow came down. Outside the Twisty-Tail house, just as outside of every other house where the children believe in Santa Claus, there was heard the ringing of bells. Then someone called, "Whoa-ho, there, reindeer!" Then there was a noise in the chimney. Maybe it was the wind, or maybe it was a little bird crawling in to get warm. I don't know. Anyway, there was a noise, but the Piggy children never woke up. And then in a little while it was Christmas morning. Somewhere a horn blew. Curly-Tail heard it first, and though it was scarcely daylight, he hopped out of bed. "Wake up!" he cried. "Wake up, everybody! It's Christmas! Merry Christmas!" "Merry Christmas!" cried Flop-Ear. "Merry Christmas!" echoed Baby Pinky, and they all rushed downstairs. "Mercy me!" exclaimed Mrs. Twistytail, rubbing her eyes. "Christmas so soon?" "Yes, indeed!" shouted the children. "Oh, come and see what we have." Well, if I were to tell you all that happened at the Twisty-Tail house that day, and all about the presents the children got, I'm sure I would be so long finishing that you would get hungry. But oh, everything was lovely. "I've got my toy steam engine," cried Flop-Ear. "And I have my toy auto," said his brother. "Oh, and see my new doll carriage, and a new doll in it, and look at her little Christmas tree," cried Baby Pinky. "Oh, how lovely everything is!"
"Merry Christmas!"
cried a voice at the door, and there stood Uncle Wiggily Longears with a lot of bundles under his paws.
"Santa Claus left these at my house by mistake," he said. "They belong here."
And there was a sled and skates and a football and a rocking horse and a jumping jack and I don't know what all.
"Merry Christmas!"
cried another voice, and there stood Grandpa Squealer, the oldest pig of them all, and in his paws he had a lot of packages and an extra one tied to his tail.
"Santa Claus left these at my house by mistake," he said. "They belong here."
And there was a blackboard and some building blocks and a toy top and toy horns and a printing press and a phonograph and oh, I don't know what all else besides. "Look at my auto!" cried Curly-Tail. "It goes like everything." And he wound it up and whiz! It went right at Uncle Wiggily.
"Hold on! Stop it! Don't let it bite me!"
cried the old gentleman rabbit, and he tried to get out of the way, but he slipped on his broomstick crutch and fell down, and a piece of prickly holly fell on him and tickled him so that he sneezed. "Look at my steam engine!" cried Flop-Ear, and he started it going, and all of a sudden it darted right for Grandpa Squealer.
"Stop it! Hold it! Don't let it get me!"
cried the old gentleman pig. But the engine went right at him and ran over his toe, but it didn't hurt much because it was so little. I mean the engine was, not Grandpa Squealer's toe. But he slipped too and fell, and some mistletoe got tangled in his paws, but that only made everybody the more happy.
"Merry Christmas!"
cried Uncle Wiggily.
"Merry Christmas!"
grunted Grandpa Squealer and Mr. and Mrs. Twistytail and the children. And from outside the house all their animal friends shouted the happy words, and the horns blew, and the bells rang, and it was Christmas at last. And so to one and all of you, children and big folks, I wish you a Merry Christmas, 10,000 million of them, and one more for good luck, and may you all be happy. And Uncle Wiggily says the same thing. So now, as there are as many stories in this book as it can hold, even with pinching and squeezing, if I were to tell any more, they will have to be printed in another book. And the name of that will be Bedtime Stories, Toodle and Noodle Flat Tail. The stories will be about some funny little beaver boys and the queer things they did. Uncle Wiggily will be in that book too, and so will many more of your animal friends, not forgetting Grandpa Whacker, the oldest beaver of them all. So until those stories are ready, which will be next season, I'll bid you all goodbye. The end. End of Story 31. End of Curly and Floppy Twistytail, The Funny Piggy Boys, by Howard R. Garis. Recording by AKMorton in Greensburg, Indiana, September 2015.